And I have not seen on the internet a proper model for art for musicians to properly function and make money in a relatively stable way on the internet, and it's been over 20 years now. I did not have any hesitation about creating Mostrodarte. What I did do prior to kicking it off was really just that looking at that printout on my kitchen wall every morning for months before deciding, okay, I'm going to register the company and I'm going for it. Like really thinking about how is this going to work? What's the vision going to be? What's the culture? What are the values? Once I finally did, it was pretty much like one foot in front of the other. You have the first steps, and then you just, you kind of got to go out there like a tiger.
The Anyas podcast is to inspire you and other women to reach new business heights. We're showing the human side to business and breaking the myth of overnight success. The Anyas encourages breaking barriers, fostering collaboration, and daring to dream big.
The community acts as a catalyst for personal and professional growth, providing a space where women thrive, innovate, and come to celebrate their achievements together.
Step into this inspiring new world and unlock limitless potential with us.
Welcome to the Anyas podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are speaking with Kim Bingham, which is the founder of Mostrodarte, which is a music platform that's pioneering the music and tech intersection. She is a Canadian rocker based in Paris, and we actually met at the Web Summit in Lisbon just after she has pitched Mostrodarte at the Women in Tech stage. And she is currently writing her thesis at the University of Paris and Dauphine. And she's had this fantastic musical career behind her with, #1 hits and awards. She started a band, a ska band, and a solo career as Mud Girl, and also an indie label called Mud Girl Music Group. She then rebranded herself into the Kim Band and dropped the album Girlology, which rocked the French-Canadian charts. She's also sang along with Nelly, Furtado, and David Usher and crafted the score for the TV show Les Invisibles. She has headlined the Montreal Jazz Festival in front of 140,000 people. As I said, multiple hits, multiple awards, so many cool tracks. And the one that really stands out to me is Sweet Irene. I love it. It's so catchy. I can still hear it in my head. And the music video is very inspiring as well, with 56 different Instagram filters created during the pandemic. So welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for taking the time and being on the Anyas.
Thank you so much for having me, Monica. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay, as well.
You've had this really big musical careers and, also embraced live streams and Patreon. And we're eager to find out, that pivotal moment for you that led you from being an artist and starting this entrepreneurial journey. But maybe let's back up first. And how did your music passion start, and what made you want to become an artist in the first place?
I started writing poetry when I was 8, 9, when you could form full sentences, write full sentences out of elementary school. I was writing poetry and doodling, like a lot of kids do. I wanted to be a singer from the time that I could speak. I wanted to be a singer and idolize the divas and pop stars as I was growing up. So by the time that I got to high school and then college, and my friends wanted to start a band to be in the college variety show, and we were on the organizing committee, it was kind of easy to engineer putting the band on the talent show, and we ended up being a massive hit. And so it's just one of these things that one thing led to another. But I always had an ambition to be a singer and a songwriter. Well, the songwriting just kind of came naturally as a teenager, out of the poetry and that sort of thing, and I was doing as a little kid. So just really natural outgrowth of what I wanted to do and following that ambition. I was fortunate enough to have a circle of friends in college that all were creative and wanted to get out there and just have fun with their friends and do shows and be part of this scene. And so, yeah, I was fortunate to get wrapped up in that and start a kind of a snowball of success.
Amazing. I mean, you've had such a varied career, Kim. Are there some moments, some highlights or successes that really stand out to you that you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a variety of different things. There's things as a songwriter, for example, that that are sort of a tickle. Like I recall once it was my birthday, and I'm going to the wine store to buy myself a bottle of champagne for the party I'm having with my friends. And as I'm there at the store picking the bottle of champagne, I hear a song come over the speakers in the store, and it's one of my songs. And so I thought, okay, well, that's kind of a nice a nice birthday present. Or it's Mother's Day, and I'm taking my mom to the movies, and we sit down in the theater, and the curtains open up, and there were some advertisements, before the movie starts. And one of the ads, I'm hearing my voice coming out of the speakers, and it's a song that I wrote for a Toyota campaign, things like that, that are just really fun. Of course, getting nominated for awards, having other artists cover your songs and having hits with them, all those things are super fun. And I'd have to say that honestly, the most fun thing though is performing in front of people and having that communal experience together. That's just really the best. And I consider myself very fortunate to have a talent that I can express and bring people together in that way through music.
Wow. Yeah, that must be such an amazing feeling to be on stage and sharing a gift that's pouring from you physically and your soul, and to see other people enjoying that moment as well. Yeah. So I mean, you've had experience on stage and also behind the scenes writing, writing for commercials, writing for TV shows. I just wanted to ask a little bit about what it was like being more behind the scenes when you're, used to being a performer and on stage, and how that, I guess, added to your career.
Yeah, I could say that if in talking about, let's say, working on my own music and my own career versus doing work under commissioned work, the music scoring, film scoring that I've done, or performing with other artists, Nelly Furtado, David Usher, as a session player. Very different. Love it all. When you're working on your own writing, I mean, it's just there's no real filter, there's no judge, it's all you're putting it out there. When you're working with other artists, they're telling you what they want to hear from you. So and other creators, they're telling you what they want to hear from you. So it's a different sort of learning how to transmit what it is that they want. And also, I learned a lot from working with other people in their projects, seeing how they work with people, how they work with their team, how they work with their musicians, how they create all of it. And a lot of these performers have a natural charisma, and seeing how they really how that also the magic of who they are, how that also informs their work too. So I learned a lot about different how to operate in different facets of the music industry with the different artists that I worked with and the different projects that I did. Working with an international pop star like Nelly Furtado, the stakes are quite high. There's a lot of writing on her success of the new album or whatever, and you have to basically drop things on a dime in order to go to the next event that she's invited to or whatever. Like plans change, and you really just got to kind of follow the fire, follow the flame. And so that's a sort of a different kind of experience than writing for film or television, where it's the director telling you, what they want. And that actually the interesting thing about doing the music for Les Invincibles was that the director was the creator of the show, co-creator of the show, Jean-François Rivard. He invited me to come and write the music for that series, because the series storyline was based around four guys in their late 20s, sort of settling into adulthood. And so he wanted my music as the female voice within the series. And so that was a very distinct kind of brief that I was given to work with. And it was a really great thing to be a part of that project, obviously. So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it can be a great opportunity to work with other people, but also a different kind of challenge to have different boundaries to work within. And, you're still able to be creative, but yeah, it can just shape your experience in your art in a much different way than when you're more free form.
I'll just add to that, that actually, to what you're saying, I find it very interesting to work within different palettes of tools and like available tools. For example, I color, but sometimes I like to work just in pencil because I want to not work in color because I want to see how far I can push myself in pencil. So it's sort of when you're working in these different creative situations, it's also to you're working with the palette of what they're giving you, and you have to be creative within that. I find that challenge extremely motivating.
Yeah. And I guess in that same vein, I'm seeing that you have been an artist, you are going down this path with NFTs and Mostrodarte, which Monica is going to get into in a second, but you have had quite an involvement. Like what do you think fuels that energy and that drive to keep evolving in your career?
I'm a pleasure seeker. I'm a hedonist. I like to have fun, and I'm always looking for the next thing that's gonna like kind of challenge me, keep me curious, learning. I know that I'm never gonna get to the end of this journey. I'm gonna end before the journey does. Like it's like I'm just endlessly curious. I think that's really it. And I think my name is appropriate. KIM, keep it moving. It's sort of like, yeah. I mean, at this point, you look around at the friends you have, the types of the choices that you've made, and you kind of go, yeah, that's the kind of person that I am. I have party friends, I have fun friends, that we're all, I recognize myself in the people that I've surrounded myself with. So, yeah, that's what I'd say. Curious, fun-loving. I love to challenge myself, and I also, like I said, sometimes I like to reduce the amount of tools at my disposal so that I can see what else I can make with what I've got. So I think this is sort of to kind of maybe answer your question and get to a more succinct answer. I like to capitalize on my previous experiences to see how far I can push the next one.
Yeah, because I also think it's interesting because not every creative also has an entrepreneurial side. And so I think I'm curious if there were some early signs, whether it was in your childhood or when you first recognized I have this entrepreneurial spirit and drive to also be business minded as well.
Yeah, that happened out of my first band, the ska punk band, Me Mom and Morgenthaler, that I was in. We were touring a lot. We were doing a lot of gigs, and money was coming in, and I just volunteered to handle the books. And so once I started to do that, and there I am with like, old school ledger book and pencil and a calculator, just kind of like putting things in and figuring it out. And when I started doing the books for the band, that's when I realized that actually I could start managing, like I could manage a project, and it sort of grew from there. That's basically it. And I knew that at a certain point, like, well, if I was when I broke off to my independent career, I knew that if I was going to I could rely on business people, but that was going to be at a cost of time, of profit, and education. And so I decided, well, it's sort of like the do your own research sort of thing in Web3. I decided that there was no better person that was going to kind of get me to where I needed to go than me. So I decided that. I think that I'll also just say that from where I am now as an independent artist and entrepreneur, I had a detour in my music career into international financing and mortgages, and in France and in across Europe. And so working in that for a few years with a team really put me in a totally outside of the artistic perspective and inside a pure business environment. So I learned how to manage a team outside of the entertainment realm and in a business realm. And so now I've obviously I've left that role, but the experience that I gained to that combined with the artistic output now, everything just seems to be much more on a much even keel. And obviously I know a lot more than I did before. So yeah, I recognize I'm a bit of a rarity, but I think that there are more and more artists out there that we've just had to become more entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I think it's great that you say when you don't see a path forward, you just create your own. Is that part of the reasoning that you at one point started your own label?
Yes, that was it. Yeah, I mean, I had been courted by major labels in Canada and the States earlier on in my career. And lots of friends that were signed to major label deals as well. I think it was just after reading, I'm a manual reader, I'm an instruction reader, I read the fine print and contracts. And so when I saw how all of that was kind of being put together, I didn't really see much of I saw that there was a lot you're giving away for that. So I just decided that I would just, that I would just do it on my own. Besides the fact that that was really how I started in the music industry, was as an independent in a punk rock DIY scene in Montreal, Canada. So for me to continue that way was just a natural part of what I saw going on around me, because I did see a lot of my friends who were signed to major labels who were unhappy. And
Mm.
so I thought there's not, the give and take of it all. The right contract didn't present itself to me for me to want to give up my rights. And so yeah, I decided that I would do it on my own. I'm obviously very glad that I did.
And now you are about to finish up your master's in wealth management. Where does that fit into the path and interest? I mean, it sounds like you have been in finance and mortgages in the past, but yeah, can you just tell us a little bit more about where that interest sparked from?
So where the master's in wealth management fits in is actually right around the pandemic, and the fact that I was doing music. I was also working in international financing, and then as sort of a bread and butter thing, and the borders were closing, and there was no international purchasing really happening in the real estate world during COVID. So I needed to pivot, and I was looking for a way to get further away from financing and get closer back into music, but more in a full-time sense, because I had to, because I had my time divided between the two activities. But I wanted to have a new approach to the music industry. I wanted to approach it in a new way, not the way that I had done since the beginning of my career. So when I went into, so I decided I would go into a wealth management program because it was a way for me because there was nothing going on during COVID professionally for me, and it was a way for me to pivot pivot back into something music related. So that's where really Mostrodarte kind of came into being, was through doing the master's program. Because my master's thesis that I'm completing for fall of 2024 is on how NFTs are changing the business model for musicians. And so it was in the context of doing the master's degree that I decided that it was time to get this business model that I wanted from the beginning of my career, Mostrodarte, up on its legs.
Thank you for sharing that background. Not only on wealth management, but then also transitioning towards becoming the CEO and founder of Mostrodarte, because I think it can be really intimidating to make that leap to CEO founder of something. You've had such a plethora of experience in music and working in corporate. I'm just wondering, did you need any exterior push to become CEO and founder, or was there a moment where you thought, I don't see this in the marketplace, I need to create this, and that's why you became a founder? Or I just want to maybe just see a little bit more into how you took that initial leap.
So the concept of Mostrodarte I came up with a long time ago. And when I mean, like years and years ago, I hadn't seen on the internet the solution that I wanted. I mean, I'm dating myself, but I was an independent artist before the internet came in, and I saw the internet come in and completely destroy the value of the music industry. And I remember looking at my box of CDs at the time and going like, what am I going to do with these? Napster's killing me. Like, so I knew, and I saw all the, this is when Facebook and Twitter were coming up. Like, I'm really dating myself, but like people were going like, what is this? And how is it ever going to make money? Right. So, and here we are in Web3 and we're seeing all the same sort of things happen again. I have not seen on the internet a proper model for art, for musicians to properly function and make money in a relatively stable way on the internet, and it's been over 20 years now. And so I did not have any hesitation about creating Mostrodarte. What I did do is so I had the idea, it was very clear in my head. I knew I had the name from a long time ago as well, from friends in Italy, and I came up with it and thought it was really fun. So I knew I wanted to call it Art Monster, which is what Mostrodarte means in Italian. I printed out a sheet with the logo that I developed on a free logo maker for Mostrodarte and stuck it up on my kitchen wall. And before creating the company, before anything, this is while I was in my master's program, COVID's happening. And I just thought about it every day. Do I really want to take this on? Like, this is going to be, I know what it is to put together a tour. I know what it is to manage a team. I know what it takes to do these things, to these scales of projects, but this is going to be huge. Do I really want to do this? Like, so that was actually the longest, the most serious time, prior of deliberation, prior to kicking it off, was really just that, looking at that printout on my kitchen wall every morning for months before deciding, okay, I'm going to register the company and I'm going for it. Like, really thinking about how is this going to work? What's the vision going to be? What's the culture? What are the values? I mean, really basic stuff around just the name and everything, entity that it would comprise, and that concept, and whether I was prepared to like carry it, birth it, develop it. So that was really the most serious part. It was just contemplating that sheet on my kitchen wall for months. And then once I finally did, I mean, thinking about it for so long, once I finally did, it was pretty much like one foot in front of the other. You have the first steps, and then you just, you kind of got to go out there like a tiger. You just have to. I mean, I've always had the passion for this project, and I haven't had any second guessing about it at all, because I knew that for myself personally as an artist, I wanted to continue. I will continue to put out music until my last breath, and I refuse to do it the way that we've been doing it. So Mostrodarte became a necessity for me. But if it becomes a necessity for other people, is where that's the scope and the scale, and that you're committing to as a founder of a company.
Yeah, Kim, I love that. It shows so much of your personality, because you said you're somebody who reads the fine print, you read all the instruction manuals. And so it's like you had created in your mind like an instruction manual for the business before you're going to get started, to know, like, I have the commitment, I have the clarity on where I'm going, and I see this as a worthwhile pursuit. And it's very different from my personality. I'm much more like, I have an idea, let me see how far I can run with it. And then if I'm still running with it, like weeks later, then it's gonna stick for me. So it's fascinating to hear your style and how that sparked for you. So thank you. I am gonna be turning it over to Monica to dig into the business more and the Web3 and blockchain side of things.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, so you mentioned that there are some problems in the music business, and I think we've all heard that, before even, all of these new platforms came out. And when I say new, I mean that those Web2 type of platforms like Spotify and just iTunes as well. But even before that, I think it was a problem to maybe get paid, and just these contracts have been very in favor of the big companies and not so much the artists. And I think a lot of people thought, okay, now with the internet, and yes, it started with Napster, but then as it evolved, okay, we got a second try here with Spotify and these streaming platforms. But yeah, it also evolved into not really serving the artists that much. Maybe you can speak a little bit about those problems.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I'm hearing now the same complaints about Web 2 going into Web 3 that people had about, or that people had prior to the internet coming in, and that the internet was supposed to solve these problems. Web 2 is supposed, well, at the time it was just the internet, and now Web 3 is supposed to solve the problems that Web 2, but we're still kind of dealing with the same problem. So all that to say, intermediaries, well, first of all, as far as the music industry is concerned, it has always been, I hate to say it, but it's always been a corrupt industry, or it's always been an industry that the intermediaries, monetizing art, especially from us lowly musicians who are, for the most part, not business minded. Present company accepted, those we discussed earlier, but the intermediaries basically, those that facilitate also exploit. And that's just the truth. The most of the time, that's just how it is. Musicians being so good-natured and just also creating, for the most part, also, and creating work that's pretty much ephemeral, because we don't have, it's not a tangible product, music, right? I mean, it's tangible sonically, but it's not tangible in terms of being a physical object. So our stuff, we were the music industry was the first industry that was seriously affected by the internet coming in. I recall a lot of watching things that were being set up on the internet where artists at the time were just kind of glomming for whatever they could do besides getting pirated by Napster. So we were on MySpace, or we were doing Facebook, or we were getting on Twitter, etc. And so the idea was, okay, yeah, we're all going to create our own space, and we're going to have our have our own voice, and the intermediaries aren't, we're not going to have intermediaries. We're going to be able to communicate. But it just ended up being basically a digital version of the analog, of what was going on in the analog music industry classically. Spotify, I mean, there's a series on Netflix, or that's on Netflix, I'm sure other platforms, about the Spotify story. I don't think I'm saying anything that's not generally known, but Daniel Ek, he had a choice of not necessarily signing so much of the royalties over to of the revenues from Spotify over to the major labels, and could have done a different deal that would have benefited independent artists more, and he decided not to do that. Well, here we are. I mean, it's how many years into Spotify's existence? All the artists that I've spoken to, I've spoken to hundreds of artists, a couple hundred artists. None of us really are crazy about Spotify, but it's if you can't beat them, join them kind of thing, because it's such a behemoth. But that company is creating headlines right now with issues that they're having with having to cut staff and change the way that they pay artists and things like that. The writing's on the wall. Web3 presents a lot more opportunity. The transparency of the blockchain is the real plus here. And the music industry has always been opaque. And so, with Mostrodarte, this is what I'm aiming for, is radical transparency, so that artists can really see what's going on under the hood.
Yes, and for ladies that are listening that might not know what's the difference between Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. So Web 1 is back in early 90s, where, we only had maybe a website to go to, read some news. Web 2, maybe where we are right now, is, you log into a platform, you upload your files to the company's server, and basically they own all of the data, all of the content. And we're more like a product than actual sovereign users or people. And Web3 is just developing right now. And it enables people to actually own their own data, and it's thanks to blockchain technology. So Web3 is just emerging right now, and I think over the last 2-3 years, it's really had a boom, especially when it comes to NFTs. And yeah, there are a few platforms that are kind of experimented with music NFTs, but maybe you can talk more about how would you see the benefits for an artist to use a music NFT?
I think as far as NFTs are concerned, I tend to shy away from any kind of conversation about the valuation of NFTs and the monetary part of it. I think it's obviously the utility part that's really the most interesting. I make a comparison between NFTs and traditional fan clubs, about like way back in the day, I mean, Kiss, which is a legendary rock band, has a fan club called the Kiss Army, and as a member of the Kiss Army, you get a patch and you get your fan club magazine, that sort of thing. So I think for artists, NFTs are the most interesting thing in that sense of being like a 21st century sort of fan club aspect, where your NFT that you could sell, if you're selling like a PFP type of NFT, could be like a badge of community, community ownership, or being part of the artist community. The utility as far as just giving perks to your fans, they're really simple things that can be added on to an NFT, whether it's the stems of the song, the different musical sections that can be mixed together for your fans to do remixes, the lyrics that you can add. I mean, there are different kinds of utility perks that we'll be experimenting with at Mostrodarte, also depending on how the artist's fan base reacts to the different perks and advantages that the artist is putting with that. So I would focus more on the utility part of the NFTs for musicians, and not necessarily on the profit part, although that is a real part of it too, is that yes, it definitely the reason why Mostrodarte is leading on our go-to-market strategy, we are leading with selling NFTs, music NFTs first, although we're not solely an NFT platform, is because it is the most interesting item that an artist can exploit and play with, and it also does have the highest profit margin, potential profit margin of anything that an artist can sell these days.
Absolutely. It's so amazing to see this new innovation and people taking advantage of it in so many different ways, because as you mentioned, it's not only selling the song, but it's selling access, a direct access to the artist. So it's almost like creating a bond between the artist and its audience. And this could be a ticket, it could be, some perk, an extra song that you're selling, or a discount. It could be anything really. And it's so cool that you have dived into this new world. And I just want to know, like, how did you hear about blockchain? What made you interested in it in the first place?
Well, I heard about the blockchain probably around 2016 is when I heard about it first, and started lightly investing in crypto in 2018 is when I did. So, but when I'd heard about it, I thought, oh, well, this actually could be a good thing for what I was thinking, what would eventually now is Mostrodarte. I thought, oh, this could actually be a really good, a good home.
And how does Mostrodarte work with the blockchain? Is it like a direct payment to the artist? Like, how does it actually work?
So we're actually, so I have got a prototype designed of the app of how everything functions, which is now shared with my development team, and we're going to be building that out over the first 6 months of 2024. So what I can tell you, Monica, about how actually it works, how it's designed to work, and how it actually might work, that might change, right, as we launch the platform. Smart contracts, yes, definitely smart contracts are part of it with NFTs. And as far as the blockchain that we would be going on, I know that was one of the questions that you also wanted to ask me. I'm approaching that very carefully, since we have not gotten to the point where we're not right away building right this second. I am constantly looking at the information around the different blockchains. I think that part of it, part of the choice of the blockchain also has to do with the values of the company and where we're going overall. I noticed that each blockchain has its own culture in a way, whether it's a socioeconomic culture, geographical, like regional sort of thing. So it's interesting. And then also there's sometimes an ethos or values to each blockchain. And I have to say at this point, optimism is the one that's really appealing to me. If only because for one particular reason, and that's that I like well, the name is great, but I like from what I've read about optimism is a sense of community building around the blockchain. And eventually I would really like Mostrodarte to be run as a DAO. So even though I'm building it, I'm building it as a traditional hierarchy sort of company. I also am in touch with Tally to see about how I can already start planning governance and changing that way. And so picking the blockchain, I know I'm kind of going off in a different direction here with the answer to my question, but basically picking the blockchain, like all of these things are so fundamental to where the company could go later. I know that interoperability and changing things later on down the line, all these things will start happening, but I try to be attentive of these, try to anticipate.
Also, you could go with multiple blockchains. It doesn't have to be just one, but having some choice. So maybe you want to do something on the main chain, like fundraising on Ethereum main chain, but then actually collecting things on Optimism, which is a layer 2 solution. It's a bit cheaper, and even have a look at something like Solana or other blockchains. It could be valuable to do a little bit of everything and then just see where the market goes and how everything develops. We are just in the beginning of this growth period. There's been 2 years of a bear market, which a lot of coding and a lot of development has happened, but I think you're really well positioned in maybe launching in Q3 or Q4 even, because that's when, maybe the hype of Web3 is really going to come back. It's funny because the last kind of cycle, everyone was very focused on the NFT price and trading. And I think that's kind of changing now. So people are starting to use more NFTs as maybe like a point system, or just as gifts, and connecting to their audience with like small collectible items. And we were even rebranding it from saying, instead of NFTs, which might be so foreign to people, just calling it a digital collectible.
Yeah.
Mostrodarte is a lot of things. Maybe could you explain a little bit more about the different avenues and the different things that will be available on it?
Mostrodarte is the business model I wanted at the beginning of my music career, and has not been established on the internet the way that I see it. Mostrodarte features, it's an all-in-one platform that features music streaming in a paid or free subscription, in the same sort of model as Spotify. It also has a marketplace for digital and physical merchandise. So we'll be selling NFTs, of course, but we'll also be doing limited edition vinyl collections. The artist wants to do a fashion collaboration with a designer as a capsule collection. We'll do that sort of more exclusive physical merchandise. And then we're also going to do crowdfunding for artist projects. So when an artist brings their community over to Mostrodarte and say, I've got a new NFT out, and by the way, I also I want to do this virtual reality experience, or I have a tour and I need some help funding that. And so basically it just kind of centralizes the main activities that a musician has in their career, having their music listened to, selling it, and then after raising money for the next project, all in one place. With, at this point, I'm at 80% of company revenues going back to the artist. Now I'm working with my financial team. We may have to adjust that. I'm a client of Mostrodarte as an independent artist myself, as well as the founder. So of course I want the best deal for the artist, but of course the company also has to make money. So we're in an 80-20 split with the artists right now. It might change in another couple of months, but right now that's what it's looking like. And that's much more generous across the board overall than a lot of other platforms.
Oh yeah, I'm well aware of that. Oh, yeah. So how do you find community building with Mostrodarte? You also have this mascot called Mo. Maybe you can talk about him.
Yeah, so Mostrodarte means art monster in Italian, and so of course we have a little blue monster mascot. In fact, I have him right here. I made yeah, so this is handmade by the founder, and I probably will have more of handmade dolls for sale, raising money for the company in the new year too. So Mo is our mascot, our little blue monster. We're right in the middle of the hunt for the NFT artist that is going to do the PFP series of Mo. So if anyone listening out there knows an NFT artist that wants to do a fun PFP series, go to mostrodarte.com. You can take a look at Mo and then yeah, then reach out to me. So definitely planning a PFP series, planning the sale of the dolls as well with an NFT certificate that will come along with the doll that shows that it's made by the founder and it's one of a limited edition. So I have a bunch of fun for here. So I have to, and it's a good sewing machine. So I'll be busy. I'll be busy with that in the new year. So most basically are Mickey. He's our Mickey. He, she, it, they. Pick your pronoun. Most trans for me. She's trans. So Mo is, and the reason why I loved the name Art Monster is because when I Googled it, monsters come in all shapes and sizes. Scary, sweet, beautiful, horrible, all sorts of things. And I thought, you know what, this company, this platform, the idea, vision I have is that it eventually becomes a huge generator of art driven by music, but whether it's through the, especially through our crowdfunding part, metaverse experiences, virtual reality, short films, books, whatever artists want to create, they can get crowdfunded on Mostrodarte. The NFTs will not just be music, they'll be for other things as well, including like for the doll of Mo and all of that. And so I just thought having a little blue mascot that sort of shepherded all of these different things that could happen and kind of encapsulated that. And it was a non-threatening, sweet little person, little being to have along for the ride. It's also super helpful for me as a founder because when I'm tired and I'm worn out, I just look at Mo and go, Mo, it's you and me. It's you and me here. We got to make this work. Okay. We're going to make this happen. All right. So
What are something that you've encountered, maybe explaining Web3 to people or just launching something that's completely new? What are some of the challenges with that, do you find?
one was just purely as far as the business model of Mostrodarte, since it's in my mind, it's all very clear. But to explain it to people, that took about a year to actually get a concise explanation of the entire thing. And I also did work with business coaches as well to do that because it was extremely hard to get to, you know, communicating the idea of something that doesn't exist to people in a very clear way so that they can also repeat it and understand. That was the first part that was difficult. Just getting the vocabulary and the language down, the economy of language that expresses the idea as clearly as possible. That was hard. Then transitioning about the web to going from the idea of it, initially I thought that Mostrodarte would just be a Web 2 company. Then I didn't really, I thought, well, yeah, NFTs sound cool. I didn't know as much about them. And so this is where we're talking about even in 2020, right? So it's been a journey, and it's really within the last year that I've decided that that the long-term vision for Mostrodarte would be that it would be a DAO. I would like it to get there, and that's my vision as CEO and founder of this company. So we'll see, time will tell whether I achieve that goal. But yeah, it was just recently that I decided that this would be as much a Web3 company as possible. That's still talking to development teams. That's still challenging. I don't think that you know, as the technology evolves, the company will evolve and all of that. So we're going to be as Web3 as possible. It's still the challenge there, honestly, is the intersection between Web 2 internet users, which is all of us, and then onboarding onto Web 3. And so there's kind of a measure there, you know, I think kind of got a be mindful of not pushing the technology too far so that users feel, some Web2 users feel like they're being left behind. I want to move along with, you know, the folks the artists I'm onboarding, and from Web2 into Web3, that the users also feel that they're kind of coming along on that journey and not being left behind too.
When it comes to music NFTs, we haven't really seen that boom yet. Last cycle, there was a lot of talk about art and NFTs. We were seeing a lot of PFP collections and in gaming. Why do you think music hasn't really taken off in the same way yet?
For a couple of reasons. The first one being that the artists are totally clued out as to, artists are burnt out on social media and what they have to do for Web2. Web3, anyone who's in Web3 knows that the education involved to get into Web3, or even getting into Web3, meaning even creating a wallet, can be complicated. I mean, it can be endlessly complicated. Totally not appealing to musicians. Absolutely not at all. That is the huge reason why. When it becomes easier, when it becomes more relatable, we're at the stage of Web3 that I saw in the I'm going to call it plain old internet, when it used to cost $10,000 to do a website. Like, oh, I want a website. Oh, it's $10,000 for a website. No, now you can do a website for free in like in an hour. This is where we're at. So it's a matter of time. Once Taylor Swift does an NFT, everybody and their mother is going to do an NFT. So it's just a matter of time. The technology is moving towards adoption becoming easier. Musicians are slowly coming into it. It's a matter of time. Once it becomes easier, I think it's really, maybe we're within a year or a year and a half of it becoming a lot more commonplace. I mean, I've been following, just as you have been following, what's been going on, well, more specifically in music NFTs, music tech for the last few years, obviously. And I've just seen an uptick in activity involving NFTs and music tech companies within the last 6 months, like massive. And so I think we're going to see a huge, just a lot of movement, progress, things changing within the next year and a half for sure.
And then you'll be there,
Yeah.
well positioned as Mostrodarte. Taylor Swift, let's go.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be, you know what, the way that I see it is I'm happy to be part of the conversation. I mean, for myself as an artist, I now, on the dawn of 2024, I'm a Web3 artist. That's what I am. I'm not, you know, I'm a Web3 artist first, and I've always been a Web2 artist, but now I'm a Web3 artist. And there'll be a lot more of us, obviously. And I think that I just love being part of the conversation. I love being part of the solution. And I would love and I'm hoping that Mostrodarte is the solution that speaks to many artists and many fans. If it contributes to being part of the solution and integrates into something else that becomes an even greater thing, that's fantastic. It's like, hey, I'm just part of the journey of making all of these things better. I'm just happy to be a part of it. And I think the timing is right.
Yeah, I have a few more questions that are really inserted here to provide inspiration to both current founders and aspiring founders. So one of the questions I like to ask all our guests is if they could share a challenge. We have talked about industry challenges, but I'm just wondering if there is whether it's a life challenge or a business challenge that you have overcome, and perhaps some strategies on how to deal with that, because at the time it might feel like very isolating and, oh, how do I get through this? But I think that when you come out the other side of a challenge or a lesson, a life lesson, it has similar life lessons to many other folks and other women who are on a similar path.
As far as being the CEO of Mostrodarte, creating this company, and what I've seen working on it for the last like year and a half or so, Mostrodarte was accepted into an incubator here in Paris called Station F, which is one of the biggest incubators in Europe. And really such a privilege to be part of one of their incubation programs there. What I saw among a lot of my fellow startup founders was a fever for investment. And that was like the first thing. Let's get the pitch deck up and let's get investors in, and that's sort of the game plan. And I think it's a fever dream. It's like it's a hallucination. It's not real. I think and I mean, I would just say I have to put it in a context of like in 2023, because maybe a couple of years before it was more of the Gary Vee train. It was like, oh yeah, you know, VC money and investor money was free. So as far as being a woman and challenges, I think the first thing is to kind of get, like, you have to look at the data and then you got to read through the data. The data being, okay, well, first of all, if you have an idea, a great idea and a pitch deck, you're not necessarily going to get investment just with that. As charismatic and wonderful as you might be at selling the idea, that might not be the case. And that's because the data says that easy VC money has slowed down. It's not so much out there. And that's the truth. So, or that's been so far, that's generally the case. Another part of data, I think, is a challenge, but you can look at it another way, is the data on female founders and investment, VC investment, that, you know, we're getting less than 2% investment over all funding, VC funding in 2021 and 2022. And so I interpret that, okay, well, that means that I have a 98% chance of not getting any funding. Okay, so what do I do with that? I got to sell. Old school business. I've got to get out there and sell. So now I have to learn sales skills. I have to learn marketing skills. It's basically like, what I say the challenge is like, you have to remember that the nitty-gritty basics of business don't change, regardless of whether you're in Web3, Web2, whatever you're doing. You have to have the gumption out there, the gumption to get your idea up there, but you also have to have a business model in a way that will possibly make money. That's another thing. And this isn't just a female founder challenge, it's a challenge overall, because I've been a part of so many conferences, I'm sure you both have, where here my fellow startup founders talk about their business model, and then the question from the audience is, yeah, but how do you make money? So I think you need to kind of keep in mind that whatever business model you have, think about how you're going to monetize it for sure. Okay. But I think that for me as a female founder, the major thing is like kind of reversing the data that you might think is negative, like that VC funding statistic, and how you can use it to strengthen your marketing plan or your sales plan or your business model in order to be stronger in other ways. I also think that there's a large I think that female founders, you're better off considering the data, focusing on going straight to women first, women groups, the Anyas, you know, you have women in Web3, She-Fi, if you're in Web3, women's business groups. If you're a woman in business, go to the women business groups. You're going to find, it's just going to be a lot easier to get access to the resources that you might go to like some general platform, and it's not the same welcoming, you know, the mission statement's not the same from a general platform than it is from a women's based group such as the Anyas, for example, right? So I'd say that is definitely also something that I would say it makes it a lot easier if female founders go towards that. But, you know, I've dealt with a definite level of misogyny and sexism in tech over the years. I think that don't discount yourself as a woman. If you think that you're listening to a man who's maybe mansplaining to you and he seems to have all the answers and know better, trust your instincts. If it doesn't seem like the right fit, don't do that. Don't go that way. There's always someone else out there, and talk to everybody, because you don't know who knows who knows what. When I'm looking for information, I try to look for high quality information for my answers. But talking to a guy and I don't want to seem like an idiot, I won't necessarily ask him for the answer. I'll look for the information elsewhere before our conversation so that I can seem a little bit knowledgeable. But I think that there's I'm not giving a very clear answer here, but I think there's a way for a smart woman to ask a dumb question without giving up her intelligence and authority. And I think that as a CEO and a founder, as a business person working, as a woman working in business, especially as you're scaling, you have to be able to do that. And you also have to be able to hire people that are better than you without seeming like you're incompetent too. So it's such a juggling act. And I think, as a woman, honestly, you have to be more mindful about all of these things that I just talked about. Because they're real and they have an impact on how people perceive you as a business person going forward, and whether they're invest in you, your followers in your community, all those sorts of things. So yeah, it's a very delicate balance to strike. It's a very interesting one too. Sorry for my long answer.
No, that's very helpful. And I think that I think that's very helpful for those of us who find that we might be the only woman in a room. I have worked most of my career in both finance and tech, and so I've often been the only woman in the room. And that comes with a certain level of fear that I'm representing all women, by being the only one. And so when, you talk about, yes, there has been a level of misogyny or sexism, it's nice to hear because it's not directed at necessarily you, Kim, or you, Lindsay, but just because you are bearing the weight of representation for all women. And so unfortunately, that takes place, but that doesn't, it shouldn't be taken away from your worth as Lindsay or Kim or Monica. So I appreciate you sharing that truth with us. And I think that it's good too that you shared your strategy of leaning into these communities, these women-focused communities that are out there, because they give you faster access to the resources, and ultimately that's how we can all rise up together. I think that sometimes there's a fear that maybe joining female groups there might be some competitiveness, and I'm not to say that there isn't necessarily, but I think usually the goal there is to rise up together with resources and share a collective knowledge.
Absolutely. As far as the positive things, being a woman in business, I'd say being underestimated is great. It's a really good thing. Yeah, that I love. I think I love the fact that as far as my fans are concerned, they have their expectations. That's one thing. In business, that's a whole other thing. You really have to prove yourself all the time. And I think women tend to be underestimated, and then tend to perform well or better than better than whatever expectations are. Yeah, I love the fact that as a woman I'm underestimated. I think that's kind of like a general societal statement. I don't think that there's anything super offensive about that. I love that because I know that I love to exceed. The other thing I'll say is just some data that I'd heard about. I mean, I heard about this, and it was from a well-known investor named Kevin O'Leary. He talked about, I saw him on an interview recently, and he talked about how in the companies that he's invested in, that he's noticed generally that the companies that are led by women or have a woman co-founder tend to perform better year to year than the ones that are led mainly by male teams. What he pulled from that was that the benchmarks or the expectations that the goals that the women-led teams would set year to year were not as lofty as, let's say, the male-led teams' goals. And so by the end of the year, the women-led teams were able to achieve those goals for the most part, which would lead to better morale overall for the company and easier, more ease to and enthusiasm to continue to achieve higher goals the next year, whereas the male-led teams, when if they didn't meet those goals, then morale would drop, and that sort of things. And so that's data. Like, that's coming from Kevin O'Leary from the investments that he's made in companies across the board. I've heard different, different things about women-led companies in regards to the mentality or the mindset that women might have leading a company as compared to men. I mean, that's one anecdote, but I think it's a good one. And if the data bears it out, then hey, all the better, right? So those are the positive things I could say. I mean, I could tell you just for myself, just this is just my personality. I think about the company I want to run, and I have the privilege also that in my previous personal relationship history, I've been around some very successful international CEOs on a day-to-day basis, and I saw how they ran their companies. And I saw that how I wanted to run mine. And I run it every day as if I'm running a major, huge company. I'm running in the same spirit. I'm not at that scale, but in that same spirit. And I think that that's probably the one thing I'd say that as women that we can probably bring to this, what we bring to everything that we do, this very caring, nurturing sort of sense. And I think that as a woman in business, when mental health in the workplace is such a pervasive issue, and that we as women are we're the nurturers most of the time, but I think that when we bring that to business, that's an invaluable, priceless quality to bring.
It is, because when you're developing your business, you want people to feel good when they come into work, because obviously they're going to work better if they feel good and there's a good atmosphere in the company. Yeah, thank you for that.
I want to turn to a different type of challenge. And, now it's been a few years, but COVID-19, it impacted the world. I know you have a particular song that came out of the pandemic, and but I just want to touch on that as made you focus maybe on other ventures and impacted your career at the time when COVID-19 hit for you and where you were.
It was a month before COVID that I got I got a lifestyle coach or mindset coach. I started working with someone who just basically helped me keep my projects on track and stuff. It happened to be just before the pandemic hit, but it was really fantastic timing because I ended up having a very productive pandemic. So, I mean, yes, I produced I produced a video with over 50 Instagram filters and shot in my little studio apartment in Paris, and done with a director in London long distance. And we managed to create this thing, which is a pretty incredible that we were able to produce that. I started Patreon then and live streaming. That's because I couldn't perform live anymore. So, and that's actually when a lot of musicians, we couldn't perform live, so we went online. That's also when I saw, and I didn't get into it at the time, but colleagues of mine, musicians beginning to get into music NFTs. And yeah, also. So it was really during the pandemic that, and it's interesting, right? That's when NFTs actually started to become more of a topic of conversation, was during the pandemic too. I think it's interesting that musicians focus down, some of them focus down on creating NFTs as a way of making a living too, and some of them did quite well because it was the right time then. So I'd say that it was really, just the online communication, online community, all of that became more important. And that's really I think that's the lasting legacy of the pandemic is that our online communities, for all of us, have become like a regular thing. I don't think that before the pandemic, we may have had Facebook groups. We had certain things that we were doing, but I mean, it really wasn't to the level of where it is now with Zoom meetings, Twitter Spaces, Telegram groups, WhatsApp, and all those sorts of things. So that's how, I mean, if you're talking about how COVID affected my career as an artist, that's definitely, it's everything just kind of going online and amplifying that, whether it's Patreon, newsletter.
Yeah, and we'll share a link to that to Sweet Irene, which is the song that Kim was referring to with the over 50 Instagram filters and just making it work given the resources and the space that you had there, and creating something so fantastic for your fans. What's next for Mostrodarte, Kim?
Well, we're always evolving, of course, because we're just at the very beginning. A new version of the website is coming out of the new year with our newsletter just starting. I'm getting a podcast up and running, hiring some help to help me along. The team's expanding with our advisors who are music industry professionals from the United States and also tech and gaming professionals that are coming on to advise with the team. Be releasing our first NFTs slated for end of Q1 2024, and that will be the NFT project. There is mainly centered around Mo, the mascot. So community building, early adopters can buy those NFTs. So that's sort of that's the first part. And then Q2 is when we'll do the call to artists to join up on the platform and really get on the music train and get it going worldwide.
Super. Well, we're excited to follow along on that journey, and we'll be putting links. I know you have the website and Instagram and LinkedIn, and as things evolve and updates, we'll keep folks in the know there through the links on the podcast. Do you have book recommendations around personal development or entrepreneurship that you often recommend to others?
Well, there's a couple, and these are really bizarre. But anyway, I think one might actually be out of print because it's such a long time ago, but it's by Dr. Phil McGraw. It was called Life Strategies. And it's a book when you're going through transition in your life. This is a really good book. So Phil McGraw, part of the Oprah Winfrey huge community. Prior to him becoming the media celebrity that he's become, he was, and I think he still may be running a consulting company that basically does strategic analysis of like a SWOT within a company of what's going on, what are the strengths and weaknesses, etc. So this is basically like this book will help you do a SWOT on your life and really help you get clear on where your strengths are, your weaknesses are, and moving forward. So I could recommend that book if you can find it. Another one that I really like, but this is more so on the creative side, although it really helps in terms of project management, and it's called The Creative Process by Twyla Tharp. And Twyla Tharp is a well-known choreographer. Very helpful. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron is another book as far as creative mind thinking is good. Business-wise, I mean, I'm having a really fun time right now reading J. Paul Getty's How to Be Rich. I'm having a real fun time with that book. But that's, I mean, reading the words of one of the wealthiest men in history and describing how he made his fortune, even if it's a little anachronistic, and he talks a lot about young businessmen that need to come in, and a lot of young businessmen. It was a different era back then, but it's a fun book to read.
That's funny. Yeah, because I read Napoleon Hill's book. I'm blanking on but that one is quite dated to the way that he refers to, like men in the workplace. And I mean, it's just, yeah, it was written in a different era. I mean, he was born in 1883, so I'll give him a pass, but
gotta read the nuggets of wisdom are still there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs who want to have a similar path as you, Kim?
Figure out how much risk you can handle. Make sure that you're okay before you take a big leap, but doesn't stop you from taking the big leap. Just make sure that you've got enough padding around you for whatever leap you're going to take, that you can land on your feet. And most of the time, even if you don't, eventually you'll get back up on your feet and you'll be okay. So my thing is like measured risk is always measured risk is always worthwhile. But that's just how I live. I realize I've got diamond hands. So, and yeah. So I've got
Wonderful.
you got to know what your level of risk is, and then go from there. But go for it. Go for it. Yeah.
Lindsay and we like a good risk.
Mm-hmm. True. That's why we started in crypto. Anything that I'm forgetting or anything else that you want to promote or share with the audience before we close out, Kim?
Really, the main thing I would say, if there's a call to action, is if they want to go to the website, sign up on the newsletter for updates. That's really the main thing, and follow us on socials. But the newsletters really mean a lot.
Newsletters where it's at. Plug in your email address, ladies. Great. Well, we thank you so much, Kim. Thank you for sharing your journey with us from, artist to Web3 artist now and CEO and founder. And we are so excited about Mostrodarte and what is going to evolve for you and the business in 2024.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Lindsay. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. Like and subscribe to never miss an episode. We've got some fantastic content lined up. Leave us a comment and review to help us grow.
Last but not least, let's connect on social. Follow us on X, the Anyas_IO, and the Anyas.io on Instagram and TikTok for exclusive content. Thanks again for being part of the journey, and see you in the next episode.